cannabis into the country from Ghana because it has the most potency in terms of the component of the HR, which is what makes them hallucinate. And unfortunately, people do not realize that cannabis, unlike other drugs, is that cannabis dissolves in the fatty tissue of the body. And most of the fatty tissue of the body resides in the brain. And so even when you start taking cannabis, after a while, because it is the fat, the possibility that it will bring itself up, but remanifest it comes up is very likely. And so I said to people that you cannot compare cannabis issue with cocaine. Yes, you might not have, when you're withdrawing, you might not have as, you withdrawal symptoms are well, but they're not as bad. But in terms of the damage to the brain, it's a long-term damage. And because of the long-term damage, nobody should, I don't think, and like I said at the AU meeting, which I said that, yes, we respect conventions, but Nigeria's stand and that of the federal government is that we are not a party to the declaration of cannabis because it's an African problem, it's a West African problem, it's a Nigerian problem. And most of the drugs that affect Nigerian people is basically cannabis sativa. And I believe that based on that, we're looking for political willpower on the part of also the legislation to help us ensure that it is not decriminalized. And the issue concerning movement to Abuja, when I came on board NDLA about a year ago, roughly about over a year ago, having been trained, and having come on board, we have made, the former chairman made, at least to my knowledge, over 3 or 4 letters. I'm talking about the letters which we have followed up. And I came on board, I went to the Secretary to Government, the Coordinator Liaison Office went to the Secretary to Government, the documents are there to move. We even went as far as making a request to PTDF because they were moving to a new building. We went as far as going to Mr. President, just before he was going to, the former president going to leave office. He promised to give us a PTF building. He said it's government to government, so we can take it. But 3 days again, we went back to Secretary of Government, they were doing handing over notes, we were not able to get the building. After that, we have written to Secretary to Government this year, towards the end of last year, we wrote to Secretary of Government to give us more space in the Secretariat so we can at least move the management staff and begin to look for more places. We are still waiting for that request. We are working on it. They've given us a positive, we're hoping to get a positive response. We haven't gotten it. To facilitate, I am told that it's still there, but I heard that maybe there are still a few people in it. But, and they still have a bit in foreign affairs. They give us a bit in foreign affairs or the PTDF building. It will help us to move the headquarters. While we think, I'm thinking that because of the burden and the issue of the oil fall now, that we should not think about building to save resources and to not to put a burden on the budget any further. If they give us a government building, and what I also said is that we have forfeited assets from criminal wealth that are in Abuja. I'm saying we're asking that if they allow us, because this is going to be auctioned, rather than auction it, why don't you give it to the agency to use for them to make their headquarters? Because it's criminal wealth anyway. It's going to be sold and auctioned. And the money is going back to government, so we can take those buildings, use it, renovate it at a minimal cost, and that will reduce the burden of having to build the whole headquarters while we can meet the headquarters project is a long-term project. And because of the shortage of resources, we are saying, look, which is the best way forward. And so that, and then the last one, the issue was the issue of giving property back to people. When we go to court and you have a case, we battle a case, and if the case, even if we lose the case, we have possession. If we go in a case, we go and make an arrest. What happens is that arrest, when we make an arrest, we ask the Attorney General of the Federation permission to freeze the accounts. And almost every time, 100% of the time, the Attorney General has given us permission to freeze the account. So those accounts are frozen until the investigation is completed. Now, when the investigation is completed and we find out that it's criminal wealth, the account remains frozen until the case is finished. But we must get a right to forfeit those assets from the court. And until the court gives us the forfeiture right, those things remain in our possession. If it is money, it is kept in custody until the case is finished. If it's a case that is not our own, like EFCC, like you can remember, we have transferred directly towards the end of the year when I took over. I transferred a lot of cases to EFCC because they were not drug-related cases. If they're not drug-related cases, we transfer to the EFCC. If they are criminal cases and